Hi Booktube, this is Kelly. Thank you so much for watching Books I'm Not Reading. I'm here today for another Shaketube video. Shaketube is a month-long celebration of Shakespeare, and it is hosted this year by 4 moderators. Rainey from Rainy Day Reads, Steve Donahue, my husband Jason from All Boost Chapter and Verse, and its founder Lukash from Totally Pretentious. And so this week I read a play that Rainey is hosting the discussion of. I read The Taming of the Shrew. Now, I was a little bit familiar with what the storyline of this play was because for kind of a silly reason, I've seen a musical called Kiss Me, Kate. And that's based on the Taming of the Shrew. And it's a play within a play. A musical within a musical, I guess. So I was a little bit familiar with what this was going to be like, but then when I read it, and I just, I read it like a novel, and I got done with it, and I was freaking out. And I'm blessed to be friends with Rainey, and I sent her a Voxer message. It was like, what did you get us into? Like, we have to talk about this? Like, oh my God. But we had some good conversations. Jason and I actually had some good conversations. He read this quite a while ago, but he has read it. And so, there is a part of me that says, like, this is Shakespeare has different categories of plays, and there are some that are classified as problem plays. This is traditionally thought of as a comedy, but I would say that maybe it's a modern problem play. When Shakespeare was alive, men definitely married women for their money, and women were expected to be obedient and submissive to their husbands. And I actually read, there's an essay at the back of this book that said that if women were to mistreat their husbands, like break furniture on their heads or something outlandish like that, it wasn't like a domestic case, it was a case of treason. Which I think is interesting considering that they had an unmarried queen ruling over them, that was what a woman mistreating her husband was considered to be treason. Okay, here's the basics of the story, just a really rough outline. Petruchio waltzes into town and says, I'm here to marry a rich woman. Just point me in the direction. I'm not picky. I don't care who she is. I just want her to be rich. And his friend takes him to meet Baptista, I believe is his name, and he is father to 2 daughters. One is Catherine, and she's the eldest, and the other one is Bianca. And Bianca has like a little herd of suitors trailing after her. Baptista will not let anybody court Bianca until Catherine, or Kate, is married. There's a scene pretty early on in the play where she's tying up her sister, and she's just raging. She's raging. I think some of that extends to the fact that she's probably jealous and embarrassed. I do know what it's like to have a sister that is incredibly popular, and this has shaped my middle school and high school years, is that my sister is older than I am, and she sort of left this kind of wake after her. And my teachers called me by my sister's name. I had a young man tell me, well, who is your sister? No, she can't be your sister. And finally, before he walked off, said, well, if you start looking like your sister, be sure to come and let me know. and I would really like to go back and just slap him across the face. But it is very difficult when, I mean, no one's pursuing her. Petruchio waltzes in and basically says, I have heard how wonderful and beautiful your eldest daughter is, and if I were to marry her, what would I get? And it's a lot of money. And he's like, okay, that sounds great. And he said, well, you know, you have to win her love. And, you know, Petruchio lies about, you know, I mean, because Catherine is still screaming like, father, like, I don't love this man or whatever. I don't want to marry him. And Petruchio pulls off this scheme of saying, like, she said she wanted to keep up her kind of shrewish behavior until we're married. The wedding scene is quite interesting. Kate is very embarrassed that her husband is late for their wedding, and I wanted to just share this passage with you so you can hear Catherine's voice. No shame but mine. I must forsooth be forced to give my hand opposed against my heart unto a mad brain Rudesby full of spleen, who wooed in haste and means to wed at leisure. I told you he was a frantic fool, hiding his bitter jests in blunt behavior, and to be noted for a merry man. He'll woo 1,000, point the day of marriage, make friends, invite and proclaim the banns, yet never means to wed where he hath wooed. Now must the world point at poor Catherine, and say, lo, there is mad Petruchio's wife, if it would please him to come and marry her. So that just gives you a sense of Catherine's feelings. So A, she's super embarrassed that he's very late. Then he comes in looking like a joker. And then he won't let her stay for her own bridal dinner. He basically hauls her off and back to his home. Doesn't let her eat anything for dinner. And and then it the play then begins to feel a little bit more like a game. And there is some references to like training falcons or like training birds of prey, which is very interesting. I don't know anything about what that looks like necessarily, but you know, if Catherine likes something, Petruchio says she can't have it. If he says it's daylight and she's like, no, it's the middle of the night, it's dark outside, and he will demand that she says that it's daylight. And eventually, like, I think she figures out, like, just, you know, and this part is true in most marriages, I guess. I would just say, like, from my own personal experience, and believe me, I have not been treated like as an object or expected to be obedient and submissive, but there are times when you're discussing something with your spouse or your partner, and you have to go, is this the hill I want to die on? Like, do I want to fight this subject to the death? And so you kind of cave in and give in. I think that's true, at least in my marriage. I think that's true as well and the other way around. You just read this play and you just look at the lines in it. You can classify this play as being very sexist, that women are objects, that they must be obedient to their husbands, which, again, I will say, like, I feel pretty strongly that was true in Shakespeare's time, that men were allowed to do what they wanted to do, but women were not. But it's a play, and I think the genius of this play is not so much in the lines, but as what you do with the space in between lines, or how are the lines delivered, okay? And the reason why I'm saying that is because I did get a chance to watch the infamous Elizabeth Taylor, Richard Burton version of The Taming of the Shrew. Look how beautiful. Oh my God, Elizabeth Taylor, she was so beautiful. And this came out in 1967. Kiss Me Kate, by the way, was made into a film in 1953, just to give you some context there. So there is so much that happens in this film that is not in the play, and I don't mean that that they've radically changed the play, or but there are spaces for silence. You can say something, but be looking at someone in such a way that conveys a completely different meaning. It really requires a lot from the two main actors. That this film does a really good job of showing us, you know, a Catherine by herself, all alone, sitting in a room thinking about, you know, marrying this guy, and that's not that's not in the play because there's no dialogue, right? So it's just her there, and I think she's thinking about, you know, that she's sick of playing second fiddle to her sister, and what would it be like for her to be mistress of her own house, to entertain, or to I don't know, to get away, to get out of that atmosphere, even if it is with Petruchio. And there are moments where, again, there's no dialogue to it, but I think Petruchio, there's a scene where, you know, he comes in and she's working with the servants to get the chandelier cleaned off, and that the servants all have new clothes because their clothes are just terrible. Like, really, they do make Petruchio's house look like quite the man cave when she arrives, and she's changing all of that. And I think there's a moment where he's walking down the stairs and just kind of overlooking the scene, and I think he's thinking about, like, oh, like maybe it would be nice to have a wife. Now, I believe Rainey doesn't buy it in the end, because there is a famous speech of Catherine, by Catherine at the very end. Bianca gets married. They go to her wedding, and they go to the bridal dinner, the big dinner at the end, and you know, Catherine makes a big speech about how, yes, you know, our husbands are our Lord and Master, but also our protector and our defender, and they take care of us. And yeah, so it's a complicated play. It's a complicated speech for a modern audience, but I really believed it. Like, I bought it. I like the idea that there's nuance, that you're never going to see two productions of The Taming of the Shrew that are going to be the same, because it is all about the chemistry between the two main characters, and if they can really make you believe that they love each other at the end, or if we're just going to write this off as sexist and objectifying women. Now, if you hate Taming of the Shrew, it's fine. It's fine. You can tell me all about your feelings in the comment section, please. You know, I do understand why people would maybe not appreciate this play. There is one other thing I wanted to really add, and that is, at the very beginning of the play, there is this, like, introductory act. And there's this character named Christopher Sly, who's clearly an alcoholic, not a wealthy man, but he's passed out in a bar, in a pub, whatever. And this lord comes in and says, oh, like, this would be such a great joke. Like, let's haul him off, and we'll put him in my clothes and in my bed, and when he wakes up, we'll act like he's a lord. And I think Shakespeare because he doesn't do really anything with it at the end of the play. He really gives Catherine the last last sort of big moment of the play at the so there's nothing about Christopher Sly at the end, and part of me feels like by that point maybe Shakespeare thought like, oh, I don't need this play within a play. My edition says something along the lines that Christopher Sly would have stood up and said something like that he was going to go home and kind of retrain his shrewish wife, if you will. But the one thing about that introductory act is I think it gives us a clue to maybe what Shakespeare was trying to say, or part of what he was trying to say with this play, is who are we really? Who are we, like, and how do we know, like, do we really know ourselves? Do we pretend to be someone else when we're actually something else? Because there is a lot of that. Like, all of Bianca's suitors pretend to be someone else. One of them has a servant. He pretends that he's him. There's a mix-up with somebody's dad, you know, and even Bianca is deceitful when she runs off and secretly gets married. So, yeah, it's just, so I think there's a lot of that, and I think maybe Petruchio and Kate are the only two characters who are coming across a certain way, but that's not necessarily who they really are. And again, this is just like a kind of wild theory of mine. Like, I don't know, but I think this play is about identity, more than it is about the relationship between men and women, or maybe how we, I don't know, identify ourselves in relationship to our spouses and our partners. So, all right. Let the comments come. Thanks so much for watching. Remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and I will talk to you again very soon, BookTube. Take care.